Good evening, one and all. Welcome to yet another exciting Saving Elephants live stream. This one's a little bit different. We're having a debate this evening. We're having a debate between two sides that actually agree on the political reform that they are advocating for. That is, expanding the number of representatives in the United States House of Representatives. The disagreement is on who does this benefit. We have one saying this would actually benefit the Republican brethren, and the other saying this would benefit the Democratic Party. I'm going to let them do their proper introductions. So without further ado, I'm going to add to the screen here, of course, no stranger to the podcast, Jeff Mayhew, former vice president and current president, if I'm not mistaken, of the Uncap Fund. I think last time you were on, you were the vice president. I hope that was a bloodless coup that puts you in charge.
Yeah, no, yeah, it was definitely bloodless. Everybody was fighting over it, and they just somehow I got it.
Also, relatively newer member to the Uncap Fund, but no stranger to YouTube, Mr. Beat, or Matt Beat. First time to be on the program. I am very happy to have you on here. I don't know where you actually cross the line and consider oneself to be a YouTube influencer, but I'm assuming you're closer to it than I am for sure. So it's very exciting to have you on here with us, sir.
I influence a few people, a few dorks out there. Thanks for having me. It's nice to meet you, Josh, and always a pleasure to debate my arch enemy, Jeff Mayhew.
Yes, this is going to be a most fascinating debate because, like I said, you guys agree on the outset of what we're supposed to do. It's what would the effect of that be and why ought we to do it is where perhaps some of the disagreement lies. I'm not going to give too much more of a flowery introduction other than to say thank you for everyone watching. If you guys have an appropriate question, I appreciate the inappropriate ones are hilarious, but if you have an appropriate question, we'd be happy to throw them up on the screen if you want to get Mr. Beat or Mr. Mayhew thinking and trying to figure out how to respond to your query. But without any further ado, I forgot to flip a coin since I introduced Jeff first. I'm going to let Mr. Beat give his opening remarks first, if you're ready to go, sir.
Sure. Yeah. Just want to preface this by saying I'm kind of acting here because I'm not really a partisan guy. I do lean to the left. But yeah, I'm going to make the case tonight for the Democratic Party, why they should support uncapping the House. So far, I've been having a lot of success with Democrats. And the example of that I have is, for those who are not aware, I've endorsed approximately 35 candidates running for Congress across our great nation. The vast majority of them are Democrats, and most of them are running for the House of Representatives. The reason why I endorsed all of them is because all of them have officially added uncapping the House to their platforms. Enthusiastically, I might add. Some of them even approached me. I didn't have to really sell it to them. So I think the Democratic Party is starting to catch on. Also, there's officially 4 Democrats in Congress who have on the record said they support uncapping the House. And so I think that's even more impressive, because if you're in the House of Representatives already and you're for something that would dilute your own power, that takes a lot of courage. That takes a lot of integrity. But overall, the main argument I have for any Democrat listening or watching tonight is we want more democracy. And uncapping the House would make it so that there would be more voices heard. We would have more democracy. We could fight gerrymandering. We could have better representation in areas that have historically been underrepresented. And in terms of just everyday working people who the Democratic Party at least says they support, I think their voices would be amplified. Best example we have of this also, I just referenced it, but of all these candidates running for Congress right now that I've endorsed, I would say at least half of them are working class, which means they don't come from a traditional DC Beltway background. They're not consultants. They're not lawyers. They're not state politicians or city and municipal. They are literally just like, there's a custodian. There's a couple teachers I've endorsed. There's a mechanic, a social worker. So the more districts you have, the more representatives you have, the more opportunities you have for just everyday working people to not only have a voice, but also to actually enter public office at the federal level. So thank you for having me tonight.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Beat. Jeff, what say you?
All right. So I think first, similar to Matt, I'm going to be play acting. I'm not a hardcore partisan. I consider myself center right, but I always tell people I'm a Republican, but not in the party aspect, but in my belief of divided, separated, and balanced government. And that really is what this issue comes down to: is we need a more balanced government. We see both the left and the right, progressives and populists, on both sides, really frustrated with the system. I think everybody can agree the system is broken and we do need to do something to fix it. This is an issue that left, right, and center can all agree on. Okay. Uncapping the House makes the government more representative, it gets power to the people. But we also know that people are self interested and they got to know, if I'm going to do this thing, am I going to keep my job? If I'm a Republican, am I going to get wiped out? And I would say, first, to my Republican friends, is if you believe in your cause, then you shouldn't worry about that. Because what uncapping the House does is it provides more opportunity for you, the Republicans, to win office. If we doubled the House seats from 435 to 870, that means there's 435 new districts up for grabs right now. That means your opportunity to make the party what you want it to be. And that would be my next thing for Republicans: is who cares if you win the majority of the House seats in the next election? Don't you want a party that represents you? The Republican Party has been completely fractured over the past few years with the rise of Donald Trump. There's populist Republicans and there's conservative Republicans and there's moderate Republicans, and they really just don't get along right now. And there isn't enough space for all of these different factions to fit. And this one dominating faction has almost pushed everybody else out. And I think if you're a Republican like me or a conservative like me and you want to see a more balanced Republican Party, this is your opportunity. Advocating for an issue that creates opportunity for new voices, new centers of power in government, is right up your alley. That can push out the negative voices that are really kind of, I think, hurting the party, and it can make the party more representative of what the I think the average Republican is. I know Matt talked about the new Democrat is kind of this working class, and I think that's where Republicans kind of can be, but also strong on family, strong on national defense, and strong on the economy. I know that's an issue that's always, James Carterfield, it's the economy, stupid, right? Well, the economy is something that I think both parties have kind of let slip over the last few years. And a more representative party, a more representative government would really start to, fix some of these big problems that we have.
Excellent. Well, that's a great place to start. I want to ask an opening question to you, Mr. Beat, kicking it back over to you. You mentioned 35 individuals running for Congress you've endorsed. And have I got this correct? All 35 are Democrats?
Most of them. There's 3 independents and 1 Republican on that list.
Okay. So mostly Democratic, but a lot of some mix in there too. But I want to start there. What would you say? Because if we're going to do a reform like this, I know you're trying to represent the Democratic side, but you're going to have to convince enough Republicans too to get this over the finish line, presumably. Is this something that you find mostly resonates with the Democratic candidates, those running for the House in the Democratic Party? Or is this something that, in other words, are we just kind of playing a fig leaf here this evening, that this is really a Democratic issue? Most Republicans aren't that concerned about it. And you can get some play there, but you actually will have a hard time trying to convince your opponents across the aisle, say, that this is something that would be in their best interest as well.
Well, for 72 days straight, I emailed my Republican congressman who's supposed to represent me, and he didn't respond. When he finally did respond, he gave me a copy-paste AI-generated response, so very thoughtless, and I'm pretty sure a staff wrote it. So my Republican representative, in quotes, doesn't seem like this is a priority. Whereas I can't say 100% that a lot of establishment Democrats are on board either. I hate to say that. I'm supposed to be defending the Democrats here, but I'm finding most of my success is to the outsider anti-establishment types who are reform minded, because most people who are currently in power, they just kind of want to cling on to that power. You know, the status quo has helped them, so they want to help the status quo. Whereas I think this truly has to be an outsider movement. So when I'm talking tonight, I'm mostly appealing to just everyday Democrats. I mean, honestly, even my own, like, okay, the district over from me, just a few miles, because we got gerrymandered into Western Kansas where I live, but just a few miles away is a Democratic representative. I can't get her to support it either. Like, she's just as against it. So this seems to be like, there seems to be resistance from both parties in terms of the establishments, those folks already in DC. I'm finding more success with anti-establishment Democrats, but I'm also, yeah, like, I'm sure Jeff will get into this. You know, like, he's probably having more success too with those who are frustrated with the elites of the Republican Party.
Well, I think that's traditionally like kind of, I mean, at least over the last 15 years, obviously with Trump is like that is, and the Tea Party before Trump, it was this frustration with elites, right? And then on the Democratic side, you had the 99% or the 1% or
Occupy
whatever.
Wall Street.
Occupy Wall Street. So like this is an issue, and like this is key to Republicans. If you're out there, however many you are, this is why you want to take up this issue, is because it captures both of that frustration and it turns it into something that Republicans really do value, with constitutional principles. It's a structural reform back to closer to the founders' original vision, right? Like, this is a Republican reform if there ever was one, and it helps you capture all of that frustration, and then all of those people will then be moved into your movement, right? Like, Matt's talking about new people in the Democratic Party supporting this issue. Okay. If you're not growing, if you're not moving forward, then you're dying. I quoted Bob Dylan last week in our Substack post. I can't remember the exact quote right now, but you know, if you're not, he who is not busy being born is busy dying, right? And same thing goes for your party. You need to be growing. Okay. You need to be getting to the next voter. Everybody ages up and then out, and there's always new voters every 2 years. You know, and so like you have to be focused on what's important to them. Anything that creates opportunity to alleviate that frustration is going to be an electoral winner. Doesn't matter how down and out your party is. All you need is a new message and a new messenger, and your party can be back on top in just a couple years. It's happened before in the past. It'll happen again in the future. And this is why Republicans should be supporting uncapping the House.
So we live in a, I'm sure you gentlemen would agree, a very partisan age, where things are often wedged into, coded red or blue very easily. I mean, when we got to the point several years ago where Kanye West and football were coded red or blue, it's like, this is ridiculous. What do they have to do with our politics in effect? And I'm curious about something like this, because I think this is something that from the outset sounds very much like it could have bipartisan support, at least, and maybe one could say it has support among the American people writ large, and it would be only those elite within the halls of Congress who are maybe opposed to it. But it seemed like it wouldn't take too much for somehow a prominent politician to get behind it, and it immediately gets coded, oh, this is a blue idea, or this is a red idea. And so I'm wondering, how would we avoid that? Is that something that you see either the side you're representing this evening in greater danger of falling prey to that? And what language ought we to be avoiding or using, perhaps, to reduce the possibility that this could get just stuck as another partisan fight?
Well, do you want to go first, Jeff, or?
Well, my answer to that is I don't care, actually. I know that sounds strange, but like, here's my thing. I think like once you see this issue, you can't unsee it. And I don't think there's anything you can do that's going to code this red or blue that's not going to let American citizens understand that they're going to be better represented regardless of what party is in charge. And I think that Americans actually care about this issue. Once they understand this issue, once they see that it'll benefit them, it doesn't matter who is the messenger. They're going to want this issue. And so let somebody on the blue side take the lead, right? Like I'm making the argument that the red side should take the lead. Like Washington was a leader. People followed that guy, right? Like this is something that leaders take up, okay? And people will follow them because they know that it will work and they know that it benefits the whole, not just the individual parts grasping for power. And so I guess I'm just not afraid of that. I don't know. What do you think, Matt?
Well, one reason I decided to focus on this issue, there are many reasons, but one reason why is because it's truly a nonpartisan issue. It's not coded yet, although, you know, folks already are aware that I have been very critical of the Republican Party in recent years because I think it's gotten us down the path towards authoritarianism. But I that aside, I really truly hope I want Republicans to hear this tonight and to be like, well, why is this about red or blue? This should be for all of us because red states are going to gain districts just as much as blue states are. So, I mean, think about that. Florida will gain a lot of districts. It's a very red state. And so I think this is truly a nonpartisan, not bipartisan, even nonpartisan, because also third parties will also have more opportunities to represent constituents. There are just plenty of parts of the country where independents outnumber Republicans and Democrats. And so the other thing I want to say, this I think it's pretty clear at this point over the last 20 years that it's not so much left versus right anymore or Republican versus Democrat. It's basically the owners versus the renters. And I think the owners have had their say for far too long. When I say owners, I mean those who have all the assets, those who can just essentially buy elections, shut out any competition. So that's really what I'm trying to make this more about. You're either in the club, like George Carlin used to say, or you're the rest of us that are not in the club. I think it's time to tear down those walls and just basically get the whole club out of there.
We have some comments from the viewers and the listeners here. I'll pull some of them up on the screen, trying to read through them. What about the argument? This is a question for both of you. What about the argument that some states have added more to their House and it hasn't resulted in better results?
I assume they're talking about their state house.
I would assume so. If that's a listener, our stuff one, I love YouTube handles. It always makes me wonder where they come up with that name. But if you wanted to clarify the question, if you're still with us, feel free to post that in there. But yes, I would assume that'd be the state house.
I mean, New Hampshire has more than any, has the best. They have one representative for every 4,000 approximately constituents, and New Hampshire is doing a lot of things right. New Hampshire has one of the highest standards of living in the United States, highest life expectancy, highest GDP per capita, highest social mobility. On so many metrics, they're one of the best. And so I guess, I don't know, what state are you talking about? Alaska? Because Alaska has the worst. Alaska has the worst. And so or one of the worst. And Alaska is completely dependent on the federal government. It would not exist if it not for the federal government. So.
Yeah, we bought it from Russia.
that too, yeah, right.
But I mean, to your point, in California, the state house in California is like ridiculously small for the population, and I think there's always a balance between too much representation and not enough representation, and our founders knew this. Madison wrote in the Federalist number 10, and I don't know the exact quote, but the number must be raised to avoid the cabal of a few and the confusion of the multitude, right? So like there is an area where you're going to tip the scale. We're nowhere near that though, because the population was 100 million when the House was capped, and it's now 330 million. Okay, the number of representatives has remained the same. Okay, well, like we're so far closer to the cabal of a few than we are to the confusion of the multitude that like. Yes, it is a valid question. Yes, we should consider that as we write a new apportionment bill. However, we don't have to consider that to agree that the House must be uncapped. It must be uncapped now. We should be using our political energy to talk to our representatives and tell them it must be uncapped before the 2030 census.
since you brought that up, that there being a balance of we could have a scenario, we don't, but theoretically you could have a structured government which there's far too many representatives that would be ineffectual, or the cabal too many, say. I know, Jeff, you and I have had this conversation in the past, and you kind of mentioned that sometimes this is partially a sticking point between those who collectively agree the House should be expanded. Well, then you get to the question, well, by how much and how quickly? And is it to be done, over a period of time to reach a specific goal? And I guess I kind of have a two-parter there, because it strikes me that this is an area where a potential congressional change could be very difficult. And I wrote this kind of in the questions I submitted to you guys. I mentioned the Newt Gingrich problem. Let me explain that briefly, because it probably makes no sense. In the 90s, according to my former senator from Oklahoma, God rest his soul, he's passed away, and back then he was a congressman, Dr. No, Dr. Tom Coburn. He accused Newt Gingrich of essentially torpedoing, at that time, the reform idea of term limits. And he said the way Gingrich did it was he put before members of the House not one, but two different options. And they could not achieve a group that, one was, I think, a very stringent sort of term limits. Everybody had to be out of here very soon, and others was a bit more long term. And the problem was there were two different coalitions that fervently believed their version was the right one. And since there were the two options, they couldn't come to any agreement. I'm thinking of both that as a potential. It seems like this would be easy to torpedo. And then second, kind of wedded to that, surely there's going to be people out there running the math and saying, you know what, if we double the size of the House rather than increase it by 40%, we can virtually guarantee our party wins Congress in the next election cycle. Like, how do we, if we all agree this is a good thing to do, how do we proceed and still manage to keep those sort of partisan calculators out of the mix?
So incentives matter, okay? And I've already thought about this strategy, and that's why I want to repeal the Permanent Apportionment Act before 2030. That is not a repeal and a new apportionment act. It's a straight repeal. Okay, we leave it open, so it has to be done after 2030. So what we get here is nobody can torpedo that. There's no other option. You're either for it or you're against it. You're either for expanding the House after 2030 or you're against expanding the House, period. Okay, so you get consensus, you remove the cap. Now, after 2030, now you actually have 10 years of apportionment. Now, I don't want it to take 10 years, right? But the Constitution says that you have to write a new apportionment bill. Okay, they're going to be forced to put it through. Somebody can try to torpedo and put two different bills up, and there probably will be 2, 3, 4, 5. There'll be a lot of apportionment bills. It'll get whittled down through committees. They'll figure things out. You'll probably have two factions fighting for control. One faction might be thinking about the electoral success possibilities. I would urge against that, because with voter mobility, with the smaller districts, it's going to be a lot harder to understand who's going to win these districts. Plus, elections are all won by people. They're run by political organizations on the ground. New political organizations and grassroots organizations are going to have to pop up to support these new districts. You don't know what they're going to do. Okay, so it'd be very dangerous for you to assume that you think it's going to benefit your party, and actually what you did is you wiped your party off of the map. Okay, so this creates an opportunity for honest assessment by Congress. That's why it's so important that we are advocating for this now. We are emailing our representative now. We've got 4 years, okay, 4 years to get this done, okay? And once we do, we've now eliminated a lot of the negative incentives that people in Congress have. You've eliminated that Newt Gingrich problem, and now you're narrowed down to just actually focusing on the issue and representation in general as a government principle.
Yeah, I think we've had minority rule for way too long. Newt Gingrich, I think, is a big reason why. He's, I think, a net negative for our country. His legacy, I think, will always be bad in terms of how he increased polarization in this country. Instead of putting all Americans first, he put the Republican Party first. And he did that because he knew that this was calculated. Of course, this was a way to gain back power, because Democrats had power for decades before that in Congress. So once he was able to consolidate power, he's like, okay, what can we do to keep power? What can we do to hold on to power? And now flash forward again, another generation, and see how much worse it is after Gingrich, after Mitch McConnell, folks like that who always prioritize consolidating power within their party versus trying to build coalitions, trying to work. Like I always bring up Bob Dole. I'm from Kansas. He's one of my favorite senators. He was famously someone who worked on bipartisan legislation, constantly compromising and forming coalitions with Democrats, even though he was a lifelong Republican. Those members of Congress are gone. And one reason why is because power is so freaking consolidated. And so that's why I say the first reform we need to do is uncapping the House to shift all of that power back to the people. Really, like how I'm finding myself nodding along a lot with Jeff tonight. It's like, yeah, we don't know a lot. Like most people don't follow politics like we do. We don't know how they're going to vote in the future. We can't predict some things. And so I think that it should be bottom up, not top down, in terms of how power should be distributed. So if people really want a reform, then the public servants should respond to that. It shouldn't be top down. We're like, okay, this is how it's going to be, even though we're the freaking minority in power. Like literally the Republican Party has been clinging on to power for so long, despite having well less than 50% of the population in terms of votes. It's been actually pretty impressive. You got to give it to them. But now we've gotten to a point where we've seen how bad the gerrymandering has gotten. And yes, Democrats gerrymander too. Of course they do. But I'm just saying that's clearly gerrymandering is only there to keep powerful people, still keep them in power. So uncapping the House would be one way to fight against that.
One of the greatest embarrassments or political regrets in my life is when I personally endorsed Newt Gingrich for president back in the day. I think he was a fierce, and still do think he's a fiercely good debater. He's good on his feet. He's good for some big ideas. But yeah, his consolidation of power has created a ripple effect that I think we're dealing with even today. I don't want to lay the blame all at his feet, because all subsequent speakers have, so far as I can tell, done nothing to, and probably in a lot of ways just put their foot on the accelerator pedal of that sort of consolidation. And I bring that up because, and Jeff, I was listening to an interview you did recently. I think it was Justin Amash, former congressman, libertarian, who had essentially used that, not Gingrich specifically, but the notion that the leadership is so consolidated in the House that if you expand the House, you actually just pour gas on that fire, right? You give those leaders, the precious few who are leading this thing, even more power, because then it's even fewer voices that could check them. Now, I know to a certain degree, one could say, well, wouldn't the exact opposite be the case? But let's just lean into that for just a moment. What would you say to the person who says, look, until we fix, let's call it the Gingrich problem, the consolidation of power in House leadership, regardless of whether Republicans or Democrats are running the House, they both do this, until you kind of lowercase d democratize the House again, it makes no difference how many members we add or subtract. We don't actually resolve this issue.
So he's wrong. You're not giving those leaders more power by expanding the House. The power of the House remains the same. The power of the House is the power of the people. Okay, it's 330 million people. That power doesn't change just because you divide it into 435 parts. Okay, if you divide it into 870 parts, it's still the same amount of power. Okay, so right now it's easier for them to consolidate it because they have less leadership. If you had 870 members instead of 435, you would be forced to expand your leadership, to organize and communicate through all of those people. Okay, that would immediately break that power structure in Congress. And as Yuval Levin kind of pointed out on our show a few months ago, expanding the House would force Congress to have to reform itself just like that. Reform the committee structure, reform the leadership structure. It would create that opportunity to fix those problems that Justin Amash is talking about. And it doesn't risk throwing gasoline on the fire, okay? Because those leaders still have the same amount of power. Sorry. So, I mean, I understand there's a confusion element that can be left to that. And you could say, well, how are they going to get anything done? But isn't that kind of the point? the things that get done are the things that leadership wants to get done, not what the people want to get done.
Mhm.
Okay. And representatives are kind of forced because of donor pressure and party pressure to go along with these things. But the leadership would have to learn how to build coalitions again if they had 870 members instead of 435 members. Okay. It would just be harder to get the numbers on your side without building a broader, stronger coalition system.
Yeah, no disrespect to Justin Amash, who I'm a big fan of, but I disagree with him. I think it's bullcrap what he said. Like, has he never been a manager before? I know Jeff's a manager of a team. I've been a manager of a team. Like, you're screwed without your team. Like, if you make your team angry, then they're gone. Like, if they're going to revolt. So the more new blood you have in there, the more will revolt, and the weaker you will be as a leader. The more members also you have, the less opportunities to corrupt each member. The more members you have, the less will be bought by special interests, by billionaires. It seems to me the reason why. So, I mean, okay, think about this right now. I'll just pull this stat up. I had to look this up. I didn't memorize this. About 2% of members of the U.S. Congress came from a working class occupation. The average net worth of a member of the U.S. House of Representatives is approximately $8 million. I mean, that's the average American's net worth is approximately $69,000. Who are we kidding here? Like, the people who have the power are easily bought. And it's not their fault. I mean, we all, like you said, Jeff said, we respond to incentives. The incentives are the donors. If they want to get reelected, they're going to listen to the donors. So I just think it's ridiculous to think that. I mean, if you have this firm grasp of leadership within your party, good luck holding on to it. If you get a bunch of new members in there, good luck to you.
Now you just pointed out who is really against this issue. It's executive assistant Mike Johnson who's against this issue. Because remember, he won his speakership with like a razor thin margin, okay? And he's only had the House on a razor thin margin. So like if you're a history guy and you study speakers of the House, and we mentioned Newt Gingrich and like his corruption of power, that was pretty bad, right? But I don't think anybody would call Newt Gingrich a doormat or a incompetent. And these are kind of where the words that are going to be left next to Mike Johnson's name if he doesn't make a change soon.
Ooh. Interesting point. So
there's still a little hope for him, a little, but you know.
Yeah, I'm not going to let you bait me into a Mike Johnson conversation, at least not yet. Let me turn to the Electoral College. This is kind of a hot button issue. I think it. You know, I often point out I've got the numbers right here. I think it's only been 4 times in American history that we have elected a president who won the Electoral College and lost the popular vote. And like 3 of those times, 5 times. Okay, thank you, Mr. Pete. But the majority of those times have occurred within our lifetime, which is insane when you think about we're about to celebrate the 250th anniversary. So I don't know if somebody just wished upon a monkey paw and we're stuck in this kind of a weird loop, or if it's just the way the map works out. Probably more the latter. But a couple of questions. One, I'm going to target you, Jeff, representing the Republican side here, but you're welcome to respond to this, Matt, afterwards, after you get to go at it. If I'm correct here, if I'm running the math, the way the Electoral College works is that each state gets to vote for president based on the number of representatives and senators they have. So here in Oklahoma, where I'm from, we have 5 representatives and 2 senators. Every state has 2 senators. So we get a vote of 7, right? It has been observed often that the Electoral College is unfair in the sense that a person living in Wyoming, or a state without very many people, has a disproportionate share of the Electoral College vote, because the way the math works out is if you're in California, the most populous state, it gets so diluted that California doesn't really have nearly as much weight as Wyoming. Now, I don't think you have to be too politically savvy to recognize most of the populous states tend to go blue and the less populous states tend to go red. Would we not be talking about a system here that's literally diluting that to the point that it would be harder and harder for Republicans to become presidents?
I guess that's if you can predict the future and that everything will stay the same and that Republicans are always going to be the way that Republicans are now, and you believe that the numbers are the way that we think they are. My argument is we are significantly underrepresented, which has left a lot of people apathetic to the system who don't participate. And we are at the whims of political passion, political emotion to get things done. And what I mean by that is, you ever see there's this Instagram video. I'll share it with you guys so we can put it in there. But it explains the circumference of a circle and the area or perimeter of a rectangle, and they can be the same exact size. Okay, and they show you they take the circle and they cut it up, and it looks like a pie. It's like in 10 parts, and then they roll those 10 parts out and they put it over top of the rectangle, and you see it's kind of rectangular, but it's got all these weird edges to it, right? And then they take they keep on dissecting the circle, dividing it and dividing and dividing it, and then pulling it apart. And the more divided it gets, the more it looks like a rectangle. Okay. The more division there is, the more representative of the thing it's supposed to be, it becomes. Okay. Same thing with the country. Wyoming is significantly overrepresented. And that is a benefit for Republicans in the Electoral College. But I would probably argue that a state like California, Republicans are underrepresented. Okay. And so you may lose the people in Wyoming, their vote is probably going to be a little bit less than it was before. But the Republicans in California, their vote is going to mean a lot more than what it was before. Okay. And so if you think of it that way and you go, we can't really know, what we really got to think about is, what do we really care about? Do we care about a system of government that is what we believe in, representative democracy, and that works and functions for people to get things done? And do I believe that I belong to the party that's best represented to have the majority and move legislation through Congress? If you believe all those things, then what do you care what the numbers are going to hash out? It's your job as the politician to move the people into your camp, to move the legislation and get things done.
You're welcome to respond to that. I directed the question to Jeff, but you are welcome to respond to that, Matt.
I was going to say, the Democratic Party was founded in part in opposition to the Electoral College. Andrew Jackson famously spoke out against it after he won the most votes in 1824, the election of 1824, and still lost the election due to the so-called corrupt bargain in which Congress made deals to get John Quincy Adams in there instead of him, even though he won the most votes. And so the Democratic Party has always been skeptical of the Electoral College. I would say uncapping the House is a compromise where we can keep the Electoral College. We can still make it so small states have a bigger voice. I live in a small state in Kansas. I realize my vote is worth a lot more than Jeff's vote in Virginia, than even yours, Josh, in Oklahoma. So I have that privilege, but I think that it's ridiculous because I believe in equality. And so I think that the Electoral College, if we're not going to get rid of it entirely, we at the very least need to reform. I think majoritarianism, the idea which the majority of the population is entitled to a certain degree of, having their ideas dominant, I think that's a good thing. I think also earlier, the wisdom of the crowds is also a thing. This is backed up by mathematics, but there's been studies on this. Like, generally, most people get most things right. That's another thing, goes back all the way to Thomas Jefferson. Jefferson was like, people aren't as stupid as you think. We should let them actually have a seat at the table. So yeah, like the more people having their voice heard, the better. And yes, obviously, if you uncap the House, the Electoral College will be more representative. It'll be much less likely where you have unpopular candidates get elected, like Donald Trump. I mean, he's never, even in this so-called landslide, he keeps calling it a landslide victory when it's one of the closest presidential elections in American history. I know, because I'm the presidential election history guy. But anyway, he still didn't even get 50% of the vote. And also, you don't even think about all the people that stayed home, which is the vast majority of people stayed home because they hated both Kamala Harris and Donald Trump. So yeah, I think this would give more people faith in presidential elections if we made the Electoral College truly more representative. Sorry if I'm talking too much.
No, you're cool. So I want to kick it back to you though, Matt, because I'm going to toss this question your way about the Electoral College. Andrew Jackson was president a long time ago, and I think we could all agree that at that time the House of Representatives was probably more representative, right? It was it was more representation.
North, it
Yeah.
was more representative.
What's that?
I said in the North it was very representative, and the
Well,
South it was not very.
Oh yeah,
representative.
and slaves
Fair
represent.
enough.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was-
Compromise that the yeoman farmer in the South was outnumbered or outpaid by the the landowner, the wealthy slave owner. So it's that's how I argue the Civil War was like a representation war. Everything's representation. So, but continue.
That's a very fair point. But I simply meant the notion that since 1929 we've tripled the population and stuck with our 435. At the time that Andrew Jackson becomes president and was railing against the Electoral College, that ratio wasn't as skewed as it is where we sit today. And this is not a new idea among Democrats. So the Electoral College is maybe archaic, maybe undemocratic. Well, I think we could all agree it's undemocratic. That's kind of why I personally like it, because I think there are some things within democracies we need to not be democratic. The military, for example. I don't want our soldiers to vote on where we go to war. But stepping off that for a moment. So I guess where I'm going with this is I get what you're saying, that if we expand the House, it could bolster the Electoral College by making it more representative. But wouldn't that just have the perverted effect of those Democrats who say the whole thing's an abomination? We've got to get rid of this thing, not reform it in such a way that makes it almost impossible to get rid of it.
I mean, a lot of Democrats are more conservative these days. I think you'd be surprised the shifts that are happening. Even myself, I think well, yeah, maybe there is some merit there, especially keeping the Senate. There's a lot of younger, more progressive minded folks who are abolish the Senate. I'm like, no, hold on now. Actually, maybe we should abolish the 17th Amendment because I think directly elect, they should be appointed. Yeah, we need a buffer because people are the wisdom of the crowds is a thing, but also the wisdom of the crowds is not always there. So a balance I think could still be. I don't know. I think that the other point we haven't brought up yet is in order to logistically get rid of the Electoral College, you have to amend the Constitution, and that's not likely to happen. So, I mean, that's kind of why I think uncapping the House, we haven't said this yet. It just requires a simple bill.
I particularly enjoyed when Elizabeth Warren was running for president. She mentioned that in her first year of the Warren administration, they would get rid of the Electoral College. And it's like, how?
Yeah. Good luck with
that. So this is kind of a question for both of you. If we expand the House, does this not strengthen rural representation? And yay for those of us that live, Matt in Kansas or myself in Oklahoma here, although I live in the Tulsa area. But aren't rural areas already overrepresented? I mean, we hear this argument all the time that we have too much empty land voting already. Wouldn't this just exacerbate that problem?
I don't think so. I mean, I think that. So in the Dispatch about a month or so ago, I wrote a piece about the Virginia gerrymandering, and I don't know if you guys saw that map. It didn't get it passed through it passed through the voters, but it got hung up by the Virginia Supreme Court, so that it's not an official map. But they basically cut up the Northern Virginia into these little slices, and then they strang it all out, right? And the income inequality between the rural area, like somewhere down in Elkton versus the Burke area, was just extreme. When you look up the numbers, the average income for somebody that lives there, the house value and stuff like that. Even if you think about it, you could live in Elkton, which I don't have the specific numbers, but I think the average income there was $60,000 a year. And if you live in Burke, the average income was $200,000 a year. You could even be doing the same job, right? You could be a real estate agent in both of those places, and that would be your disparity, right? You have zero chance because you're 3.5 hours away from where your district, most of the people are in your district. If you live in Elkton, you have zero chance of actually getting real representation. Unless you happen to belong to the party and unless your issue happened to be an issue that the party already supports, you're probably going to be ignored. Now, you could always build a coalition and run for office, but as I already mentioned, you're 3.5 hours away from where most of the voters are, and you make way less money than all of them. So, how are you going to convince them to pay attention to you? Right. So, like, I think what's great about our country is it's this balance between the individual and then the whole, right? And what representative democracy does, if it's proportioned properly, is it finds that perfect balance. We're never going to be a full democratic country. And we're not going to be voting for everything on our phone. I don't want that. I'm not an expert on everything. I want some other people that know things to make decisions for me. But I do want to be involved in the process. Okay. When my rights are infringed on, I want to have somebody that I can go to and address this. And I don't want to have to drive 3.5 hours to get there. Just because I live with a lot of land around me doesn't make my right of representation any less than somebody that lives within a city. So like I think it's back to the question of what is representation. Is it a right or isn't it a right? I argue it is absolutely a right. It's proclaimed in the Declaration of Independence. It is enshrined in the Constitution. It is the first and most important right, even though it wasn't codified into the Bill of Rights, probably because, well, I don't know the reason why it wasn't codified into the Bill of Rights, but it's a right that's fundamental to our government is representation. And whether you're under or overrepresented, I think what we want is more represented for everyone, and that's what this issue does.
I don't necessarily agree with the premise that rural voters would actually gain representation. My understanding is that they would have the same representation, and those who live in one of the 90% of urban or suburban areas of this country. That's right. 9 out of 10 Americans live in either a town or a suburb or a city or a suburb or exurb, I guess. Everyone else, like, I'm sorry, but yeah, rural voters have too much of a voice. They've had too much of a voice for the entire history of our country, and it's long overdue that people that live in cities and towns have more of a voice. I'm not going to apologize for saying that because I think everybody's equal. I don't think my voice should be louder than yours because I live in a small state or a rural area. So yeah, I don't know. Like maybe I haven't seen that evidence, Josh, but I'm willing to learn more about it.
And I'm with you. I don't think that's true either. I've heard the question asked
Oh,
in that way. Let me, I'll ask one last question, then we'll move to your closing arguments. This is one I've kind of deliberately left to the end because I think it's probably the weakest question, but probably the one you're asked the most. And there's all sorts of forms of this, which is, you want more of these blood-sucking parasites? What? Your great idea about reforming government is more politicians? What's wrong with you?
I love how they call them parasites because they kind of are, right? You want to go first, Jeff?
No, I'll let you go first.
Okay, yeah, I get this question a lot. I mean, yeah, I know it's counterintuitive, but the more people in power, the better each person in power is. Um, this is why oligarchies are bad. This is dictatorships are bad, right? We understand that, but for some reason we can't wrap our heads around the fact that if you have a bunch of them, then it's not as bad because instead of being there for themselves or for their donors, they have become so insignificant that they have to be there for their constituents. We don't want to know who these members of Congress are. Why do I know who AOC is, other than the fact that she's probably running for president? But we shouldn't know these celebrity members of Congress. Like they should be nobodies. Because there should be 6,000, 10,000 of them, and then basically all of them are just like, okay, your neighbor who you just complained to. Yeah, I just think it's counterintuitive, but the more of them, the better they will get. Just think about it, please.
So he's dead on, right? Is you remove a lot of the negative incentives for power you remove a lot of the negative incentives because you lessen the amount of power that the representative has because you're
Yes.
shrinking the districts. Okay. Lord Acton said power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. So that's what Matt's referring to when he's talking about like a small legislative body can be corrupted. Okay. Just because we all recognize that authoritarian dictatorship power is bad, but what about when it's consolidated in 10 people or 20 people? Like, what's the number where you're like, okay, now it's a problem? Well, 435 is the number. And so, but like, I think what I would tell the person who says that and says, why do you want to want more politicians? It's not supposed to be more politicians. It's you. Like I'm trying to give power to you, the average individual voter. You have the chance now to actually run for office. Listen to what Matt said a little bit earlier ago. I know this is on the Democratic side, but a lot of those people running for office, they're regular people. Okay, they have regular jobs and they're not stupid. They're well educated on the issues that they are living through. Anyone can do this job, and anyone should have the opportunity to run for office and change and put their mark on self-government. And right now, it's too difficult. And I get the concern. You see the negative incentives that are there now. You see the people or the flies that have flown to that very bright light in Washington, D.C., and you think, oh, I don't want more of that. But you're dimming the light and you're changing who is going there.
Yeah,
Well,
I don't just want more representatives. I want more senators. I want more justices. I want more presidents. Why do we only have one president? All right. Anyway,
that's you're going crazy now, Matt. More
one thing at a one at a time. But weaken all their power. I want them to have less power. Like the less power they have, I think the better we all are.
I think that's key to this is like, go back to our founders. What were they concerned about? Concentrated power. They were concerned about concentrated tyranny and in the concentration of power. I think Madison wrote I don't think it was in the Federalist paper, but one of his letters or notes to Jefferson is like the combination of the legislative, judicial, and executive into one is the sheer definition of tyranny. And think about it, because that's how Republicans and Democrats both campaign to get things done. They say, vote for me, vote for my colleague that's going to be in the Senate, and vote for the president who was the same party. And now we have control and we can do whatever we want. And that's a scary prospect.
So let me ask you guys in closing thoughts, because I do want to give you a closing argument just as a reminder, if you could pitch it in such a way so that, Matt, if you're speaking to your Democratic brethren and Jeff to the Republican cause, I want to add to this that we are in a backdrop where there are many Democrats and Republicans who view the opposition as an existential threat to the United States of America. And I guess I want to encourage you, how do you speak to them to say this is a reform idea worth getting a hold of, to maybe, I don't want to say so much lay down your arms in the fight, but that this is actually something worth focusing on, pouring energy into. You can actually tangibly do it. And I realize I didn't put this in the show notes. I will after the episode airs for the archive version. If you both want to give any call to arms or where you want people to go or action items, websites they could visit, where they could sign up, where they could learn more about No Cap Fund, those sort of things.
Yeah, projectnocap.com. I will say for Democrats, if you're a Democrat watching, listening right now, uncapping the House is going to make democracy increase, representation increase. It's going to make it so that elections are more competitive. It's going to make it so that campaigning is easier and less expensive. You get billionaires that won't be just able to buy candidates. You have more opportunities for grassroots organizing. Candidates can spend more time actually meeting with their voters and constituents and less time begging billionaires for money. People should matter more than money. Also, just like think about logistically, you have more members of the House. You have more members that can get stuff done that you need specifically for your very different district. I know that we're a highly federalized society, but when it comes down to it, what matters the most is what's going on in your neighborhood and your city, your county, your state. Most of the things that affect you on your day to day life is with local politics, and a lot of the federal stuff is just it's theater. So if we get more reps in there, we get more done at the local level. Think about what matters to you in your community. That will be focused on more if you have more help in Congress. So yeah, again, projectnocap.com. Oh, sign the
Yes.
petition. I put the petition in the chat.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yes, if you support us. Thank you.
Okay. So the first thing I would say is the other side is not the enemy. They're your
Yeah.
friends and neighbors. Okay. Flat out. Like, we are united together, whether you want to be or not. Okay. And it is in the interest of all of us to figure out things and work it out and start moving forward. Okay. And if you're a Republican out there and you're thinking, like, why do I want to support this issue? I mean, think about it. What do you care about as a Republican? You care about people? Okay. This brings the government closer to the people. Check mark. What do you care about as a Republican? You care about people having a voice, different, not just everyone, but all the different groups out there, the interest that have business interest, political interest, all these. You care about them having a voice. Well, this helps that problem. What do you care about as a Republican? You care about the Constitution? You care about the structure of government, the system of checks and balances that our founders created? This issue is the issue that helps that more than any other issue out there. It helps balance the system. We haven't mentioned it yet, but the executive branch has nearly 4 million employees, and the legislative branch has about 80,000. And it's the legislative branch's job to check the executive and provide oversight and to go through all of our financial data, right? To write the taxes and raise revenue and all these different things. And they're just outmanned. Okay. So this fixes one of the biggest structural problems that we have. And, the last 10 years, the rise of Trump, the MAGA coalition, the Republican Party has become extremely populist. Okay. And, I would say that some people, you looked at them at first and were like, I can't believe these people are supporting Trump. And then now they don't even resemble themselves. But go back to where they were 10 years ago. Okay. And think, did they have a little bit of a gripe? Was there a bureaucracy that was really kind of in the way of us getting things done? Kind of. Does this help with that? Does this reduce the power of the Washington elites? Absolutely. Where does that power go? It goes to the average citizen. It goes to regular moms and dads all across America who are working hard to provide for their family to, get a leg up for the next generation. And I think, like, if you're a Republican, you care about this because it's the thing that makes the country better. Okay. It's the thing that makes the whole better. So you're thinking about everyone, not just your party. But if you are thinking about your party, think about this. Jonah Goldberg was on the Reagan Caucus podcast just the other day, and he said nobody in history, he's talking about President Trump, cares less about growing his party than the president. Right now, there's a whole bunch of traditional Republican issues out there that Republicans would probably, normie Republicans as they're called, Reagan Republicans, that would probably be doing really well in the polls. Yet Trump can't do any of it right. He's flip-flopping left and right, can't make a decision. He's got us bogged down in all these different disputes in foreign policy. He cares very little about the party or growing the party. And I think if you're a Republican, you have to think, what do I want that party to be? And what's my best chance to make it that way? Well, that's uncapping the house. It gives you the opportunity to regrow or rebrand your party, and it allows you to make it something that is actually represents your principles and not just an individual, but an actual party again.
It's very well said. Jeff, one more time, what is the website you would encourage people to go to learn more about No Cap Fund?
Thank you for reminding me. Go to projectnocap.com. com. Okay. When you're there, you can do 3 very important things. You can email your representative right from our site. Okay. Take 5 minutes a day and email them every day asking them where they stand on repealing the Permanent Apportionment Act of 1929. Second, you can sign up to volunteer. An issue like this is going to take people, everyday citizens putting in the work of self-government, and we're building the team to get it done. So you can sign up and we'll get you plugged in. And third, donate. You can donate by just dropping some money in the donate box, or you can buy some of our swag. Wear a Y435 t-shirt around and get people talking about this issue. I guarantee you, just sit around wearing this shirt and somebody will eventually come up to you and be like, all right, I got to
Yep.
ask, why 435?
Yep, it works.
That's an awesome. I appreciate it, gentlemen. You guys obviously could represent this issue better than I could, but I will just add here at the end. Yeah, sorry, that was negligent punning on my part. I will just add here at the end, as Mr. Beats had said earlier when we we're talking about the Electoral College, that it would require a constitutional amendment to actually abolish the Electoral College. We can do this relatively easy in comparison to, say, like an amendment. This is an issue that I think has widespread appeal. I think, Mr. Beat, you used the term not bipartisan, but nonpartisan. This is something that I've seen the light bulb come on with other people. I'm sure you both have seen this yourself as you begin to explain it. They begin to say, oh, this actually seems doable. This is an actual reform that can meaningfully change things in an era where I think way too many of us feel like it's hopeless. There's just nothing we can do to make our politics better. This is something we can do. So please go to the website. I'll put it in the notes in the archive version of this conversation. Check these guys out. I appreciate Jeff, Mr. Beat. I appreciate you both taking the time to lay out the arguments. I definitely enjoyed it. And thank you, watchers and listeners, for hanging with us in this conversation. We will see you guys next time.